Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about a podcast player that I've been using for the last little bit called Snipd to take highlights that I use in my Digital Mind workflow. So in this video I'll show you how you can take the highlights and export them to applications like Obsidian and Logseq, how I process them into literature notes, as well as why I like this particular player. So let's dive in and take a look. So if I go to my phone and open up my Snipd player, I can go to an episode that I'm listening to, and there's two ways that you can take a snip. You can either click the snippet button on your phone, or you can use the triple click feature on your headphones. So as you're listening to the episode on the go, you can just click your triple click and take all the snips of the things that you find interesting or insightful or you might want to make notes on. And then once I'm done with an episode, when I'm processing my inbox the next morning, I can export all the snips for that episode of a podcast. And you can do that by going to the Account tab and going to Export and Sync. And then there's a couple options that you have here. You can integrate it with Readwise if you use Readwise. You have Obsidian, Logseq, and just plain Markdown files. The one that I like to use is Logseq, which is outliner style for taking my notes. So I'm going to select that one, but I will show what each of the different exports look like. So I'll click export to Logseq. I'll find the episode that I finished from the previous day, click done, and then you have some options of what you want to include, everything from summary, transcript, the episode information, or any private notes that you took in the Snipd app. I like to just turn everything off, and then that way when it exports, as you'll see, I'll just get a link to the audio file for the 1 to 1.5 minute snip that I took that I can listen to when I'm going ahead and processing my notes. So I'll go ahead and export this as a file, and I'm going to save it in the location where I have my Obsidian Vault on my phone. So as pages, I'm not going to change anything with the name. I'll just click save, and then I will go open up my Obsidian Vault to sync that across all my devices. And I sync across my devices using the Obsidian Sync service. So let's go to the computer and see what this looks like. So back at my computer, you can see this is the file that I just exported from my phone. This is what it looks like in Obsidian. I'm not going to process it in Obsidian, but I'll just show you what it looks like as well as the different export types. So if I had selected Obsidian and had all the options selected, this is what it would look like. You would have the link to the snip, the summary, you would have a transcript here that you can expand and read as well. This is what the Logseq one will look like, as well as if you just export it as a plain Markdown. So I don't actually process it here in Obsidian. I'm going to open up my Logseq vault, and if I go to the example, this is what it would look like as I export it with all the options deselected. I just have the snips that adds a title based on what it thinks the section might be about, and then I have the link that I can click, which will open up the audio file. So if I go ahead and click that, then it will take me to just that section, and I can click play to listen to what I had snipped while I was on the go. So what I'll do here is I take all of this, I will cut it, and then I go to the podcast page for that podcast, and then I create a new entry for that episode. So I would just go ahead and paste this one in, change it to a header, remove all this extraneous stuff, and just kind of keep the snip links that I had. So you can see this is the one that I've already processed for that episode. I give it some metadata. I have a little template that I use to add the podcast information, the title, the author, it already has the podcast type, as well as I give it the ordered status. So in a future video, I'll show my kitchen of knowledge, but this basically puts it in a query so I know that I need to come in here and write literature notes for this. So I would just tag it as ordered, and then once I'm done, I just mark it as complete. And then what I do is I'll listen to that snip again, and then I will write a literature note about what it is that I wanted to take away from that. And then once I have all my literature notes written for those sections, I'm good to go. And then that is done. So that is how I export and process them. So why do I like this podcast player for taking those highlights? Well, before I tried a whole bunch of different podcast players. I tried taking notes as I was listening. I tried just taking transcripts, going back and reviewing transcripts. And this I find is the best so far. With taking notes while I was listening, there was so much friction to doing it that I would just not listen to podcasts. So I typically like to listen while I'm going for a walk or doing housework. So my hands might not always be free, especially when you're walking in Canada and it's like minus 30 outside. You don't want to be taking your hands out of your gloves and typing on your phone while you're doing that. So just being able to triple click on the headset is pretty good. And so I found I just wouldn't listen to anything. And I felt like I was missing out on some time where I could be absorbing a little bit more information in an enjoyable way. And then also with transcripts, going back, sometimes the way it transcribes it is a little confusing, and then you have to go back and try and find that section in the podcast and re-listen to it, or having to read through. You wouldn't quite hit you the same way. Something about hearing the people talk about it, I find, kind of triggers something in you. So I found that this Snipd player is actually a really good way. Sure, you're not taking notes as you're listening, so you might miss out on a little bit of information, but I still feel like I'm capturing most of it, because typically I'll listen to a podcast episode within a day or two. I've finished, it's back into my digital mind for me to process, and then I'm really just listening to those short snips to remind myself about what the important part or the insightful part or the meaningful part of that episode was that I wanted to take a note on. And usually it comes back to me pretty quick, just giving it a listen through. So found it to be really easy, useful. Being able to export into the outliner style directly into my Obsidian vault to use with Logseq was really easy and frictionless. There's a few steps to getting it exported and synced and moved to the right page, but I found that it's not that burdensome versus how easy it is to just click the link, listen to the snip again, and then I can just be taking notes within a few minutes. So that's the Snipd podcast player. If it seems interesting to you, I highly recommend it. Of all the ones that I've tried, this has been the best one so far to incorporate into my digital mind workflows. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Hopefully found something useful in this video, and I will see you all next time. Today I want to talk about a podcast.